said, stories flow like wind and migrate like birds. Cinema uses stories, and that is why we are trying to understand what is a story, plot, and screenplay writing. So we have talked about story, we have talked about plot, and now we are talking about conflict and motivation within the story. And as I said that this conflict is a source of dramatic energy. However, motivation is the path. So if conflict is the energy with which story is moving forward, then motivation is the path on which story is moving ahead. Now, when we talk about motivation, and when we talk about conflict, now let's first talk about motivation. Now, motivation, when or for that matter, conflict, they can be internal and external. Now let's talk about motivation first. Typically the hero's inner motivation springs from the mental life, his values or her values, needs, background, etc. These elements in turn guide the physical action that arise in response to some outer challenge or opportunities, in order to, in other words, the outer motivation. Now please understand that when your character, be that a male, female, or it has got values, innocence, determination. Now, if I have determination, like suppose if I am the central character or you are the central character of the story, and you have determination. Now, determination is something which is within me or within you, but it need to have a physical exhibition of values, of need, or determination. For in this particular case, if I have determination which is inside me, how will I externally show it to you? So when it comes to inner motivation, the devices that we use is either a flashback or audio which is there in background, or so that is few devices. That can be a dream sequence also, that can be a flashback, that can be a flash forward for that matter. Why not flash forward? And but there will be some it need to be exhibited. So one is all these devices, and the second is that whatever is there, something called aspiration or motivation, which is very internal. Suppose if I say that I need to show from which background I come from. Now, either I take you in the story to my village, or I create a situation where the way I speak or the way I behave in a certain given situation, so I can give, or I can write, or I can project a very decent, or this is how a civilized person will behave in this particular situation, or this is how an uncivilized person will behave in this particular situation. So when it comes to internal motivation, there are devices through which you establish your internal motivation. And when it comes to external motivation, there are a lot of different kind of devices, like you personify that particular attribute, the character attribute, and you personify that. And like I give you a perfect, very good example of a cycle of a villain, which is like very sociological, not psychological. I mean, he or she need to be psychological also, but very sociological in his or her approach. Like when you think in terms of Joker, he is not only psychological, but he is very sociological villain also. If you remember the climax, not only he is playing with the psychology, but he is playing with a section of society also. So that value, the element of value which is very internal, basically Joker is a personification of that value in the story. So this is how that internal and people love external, be that conflict or be that motivation. People love external conflict and motivation, but there are wonderful One Flew Over Cuckoo's Nest. It is all internal, and obviously there is an outburst in the end, which is like external also. It is not like that. You know, when you see Black, there is internal motivation, but that also need to be externally projected. Internal conflict is also there, and there is external conflict also there. When she does something like this, that is like remarkable. I mean, you need to see that. Now, so when we are talking about inner motivation, we also have to talk about external motivation. Now, like when you talk about it is the outside goal that first catches an audience attention. As I said, that if given a choice between internal motivation or conflict, or external motivation or conflict, people love to see outer or external, because that is like very obvious. Like as I said, if you remember, I just gave you an example of Bahubali, which is like the conflict is very, very external. That's why it was able to create a hook also, and it was able to catch the attention of audience. And so, as I said, that outer goals catches audience attention very well. Any inner persuasion lies beneath the surface of the tale, and and is revealed as the story progresses. Now, that is like one of the problems in writing, that it is easy to create an incident within a story. Like suppose there is one very interesting film. I mean, I was watching that. I'm just not remembering the name. Where Dhanush had some conflict with the antagonist of the film, and he's walking in scorching heat, and one of his sidekick starts pumping water, and he breaks the small wall of the parapet, and the water flows, and touches Dhanush's feet, and the sigh that he has is like, and he slightly raised his chin up, and that particular scene is like very external, but at the same time very internal also. When water is like beneath his feet, and the satisfaction, the sensation that runs through the body, though it is projected externally, and there is like kind of a sensation, and there is a kind of, when he raises his chin up, he feels it. But had that not gone through the inner process, that sort of an expression, though that expression, please understand, that expression is external, but unless you do not internalize that expression, unless until you do not feel the sensation and let it run from toe to head, that sort of an expression is very difficult to deliver. Now, because any inner persuasion lies within the surface of the tale, and it reveals as the story progresses. The outer motivation then is the initial cause that starts the hero down a certain path. Now, like when this outer motivation is that, you remember Bahubali. I mean, as I'm talking about that particular film, so I'll let me give you a lot of examples from that particular film, though there are a lot of other examples also. Now when he sees that mask, of a mask which flows down from up hills, and then he try to make an image of her, that mask, though it is a catalyst, and but that aspires him to go up the hills, and that is where he meets her also. Now, inner motivation, however, is important because it helps to keep the hero's physical attention to that particular part. Now, together, outer and inner motivation form an as an integrated unit, and gives an explanation to the events-driven action and its justification. as I gave you an example, that when I said the water is beneath the feet and there is a sensation from head to toe, so it is, yes, internalizing that action is very important, but as important as internalizing the action, the same way it is important that there has to be an external, exhibition of that. So saying that, uh, yes, external is being appreciated more, there is no doubt about it. I mean, as I have said it, and I also believe it, but to weigh, when you have to weigh internal and external, there is where I will give equal importance to both. What people like is a different thing, but as an actor, the process for you, as a person, or later who will be directing the actors, for you both is important. When actors come and talk to directors, this is what they talk about, that when they read script, yes, there is an external action which is being written, and people are aware, they read, they rehearse, they understand, they practice, they emote, a lot of things are going on. But when the final time, when comes the final time of the performance, or maybe before that also, there are a lot of actors, or there are a lot of directors who sit with each other, a lot of actors sit with director, a lot of directors sits with actor. The external is being written, but they discuss the internal. I'm not talking about all, I'm talking about all those people who actually follow the process. So they not only talk about external, like yes, you have this particular character, looks like this, costume, this is a specific costume, this is a specific makeup, this is a specific prosthetics for that matter in case, or this is a specific wardrobe for you, or this is a specific action. There are markings like you have to come from this point to this point, and this is how you have to say it. All this is there when you technically break down the screenplay. It's all there. But that internal journey of the character, like a lot of the actors that you appreciate, they go through the internal journey of internal aspiration, internal motivation, internal conflict, of the character. So when you see a great performance like Amitabh Bachchan in Black, or when you see Kantara, for that matter, a very good film, or when you see RRR, or when you see Tumbad, for that matter, or when you see Dream Girl, or when you see Khosla Ka Ghosla, it's just not external. Though you see only the external, but for actors, it's not just external. A lot of the things are internal, and there is a balance of internal and external. Now, so this is so far about motivation. Now let's balance it also by conflict. Now, so as I said, like motivation, external and internal, conflict is also external and internal. And I don't know whether like many of us are able to understand external or not, but motivation or not. People definitely understand conflict, because there is a drama. Motivation is the path to follow, and conflict is drama itself. Now, whenever there is a difference in character and similarity in goal, I mean, these lines, as I've just said, trust me, they are wonderful lines to I mean, I have not, I'm yet to find a better explanation of conflict than what I'm saying. Whenever there is a difference in character and similarity of goal, conflict arises. Now, this is hardly a line. Whenever there is a difference in character and similarity of goal, conflict arises. But trust me, on this particular one line, you can understand the entire domain of conflict. Here you find, like, through this line, I mean, this is like one of the very powerful lines. I mean, you find any epic here, you find any recent drama which is written or finished one day back. From epic to what has been written yesterday, it all fits here. Whenever there is a difference in character and similarity of goal, conflict arises. You think of this line and you think of all the dramas written in the world, all the films made in the world, all the soap operas made in the world, all the cartoons made in the world, they all fit in this line. As long as, the characters agree to the same point, there cannot be any conflict. Now, I was reading, I was listening to a lot of CEC videos also, so I was listening to one of the sociological lecture on sociology. Basically, she was talking about Durkheim and Marx and a lot of other philosophers, classic philosophers, 19th century philosophers. So she was talking about that plurality. Why plurality is important? Why when there is so much of conflict in the world, why we do not stick to one point? She was but this plurality is what makes society. So if all agree to one point, there can never be any conflict. And because there is no conflict, so there is no drama. And when there is no drama, stories will be similar, experiences will be similar. And human beings, without drama, they cannot live. So what I heard, I agree with that. And but when it comes to story writings, there has to be a conflict, because everybody, suppose there are two characters, let me personify them. One is Ram, one is Ravana, and but they have the similarity of goal. They may not have, please understand, but they may not have. If they may not have, they are not part of the same story, because their goals are different then. Their goals are different. So there has to be a difference in character and the similarity of goal. I gave a wonderful example of Ramayana. You think of Mahabharata also. You think of Arabian Nights also. You think of lot of you think of Dar, Diwar, Divana, or any for that matter Bahubali also. For that matter, the climax scene of Dangal also, where you have the similarity of goal. Both the girls want to win the final position, at the wrestling match. So they have similarity of goal, but they are different characters. They are different characters, and that changes their fighting style also. So no drama. If there is a drama, there is a conflict. The plurality of opinion gives birth to conflict. Now remember that when we were young and there was when we were in classroom, and teacher comes and says that this is what I'm saying, so there is no plurality of opinion, and the entire class says yes. So because there is no plurality of opinion in the class, so it moves in a certain way, the way teacher wants. But when you come to graduation or post-graduation level, your opinion is invited, and there is a plurality of thoughts is being accommodated. Though there is a conflict, there is no doubt, as there is a conflict, there is a plurality of opinion, conflict will arise, but then we are mature enough to reach to a common point. Now, there is a simple formula to create conflict in cinema. The protagonist, as I said, the protagonist and antagonist are having the same goal. Now, the moment I say protagonist and antagonist are having the same goal, now you fit any film that you have seen, you have liked. It need not necessarily to be a female. It can be, achieving a specific goal, passing certain exam, or finding the treasure, or but there has two people, more people, they are different characters. And this difference in characters, help them create drama. And when you help them create drama, this is how conflict is also arise. So the protagonist and antagonist are having the same goal. As they will try to achieve the goal, the conflict is bound to happen. To have more drama in your script, you need to have more conflict. So there are there can be a lot of examples, to be very honest. Suppose if all of you have seen this film, Queen, for that matter. She is engaged to a person, something happens, and she decides to then leave, and she goes on a tour, and very interesting thing happens. This is one story. Okay, what happens? Let's create a hypothetical situation here. So you have seen this story. She is heartbroken and things like that. But think of a new story, like something like that. There is a lady, because we are talking about a women-centric story. So let's talk about a women-centric story. Now let's create a story here. Some hypothetical situation that there is a lady who has been happily married for last 10, 15 years. But she has been observing few things, and one day suddenly she vanishes. The entire family is like worried, where is she gone? And she calls and says that I am in Manali. And the entire family is thinking, how come you are in Manali? Why have you not informed someone? There are people who will worry about you. There will be children or child, there will be a husband, there will be a mother or mother-in-law. What is stopping her from sharing the information? And trust me, this can be a wonderful story. This can be a wonderful story, because you do not know the reason of conflict. You do not know the reason of her motivation. And this is a story which is being created right now. And, that is when we explore something like this, when we start, every writer will approach this hypothetical situation in a very different way. Somebody will give some different reason or motivation or conflict. If another writer approaches the same story, he or she will give it a different reason. Had it been a true story, what would have been the version of that mother or mother-in-law, of that son, or of that husband? This is up to you to think. Now let's talk about it's a good story, I think. Now let's talk about like Diwar has got the same thing. Vijay, angry young man. Vijay is against the system. Ravi is quiet and with the system. Love triangle like Dar, Bazigar, Dhadkan, or Bahubali. There can be many types of conflict. There can be behavioral conflict, there can be sociological conflict, there can be traditional conflict. Some of these examples, let me share you. When we talk about behavioral conflict, like we are talking about miser and somebody who spends really well. So suppose if you want to fit this particular equation in a love story, so the girl can be miser, which is very interesting to show, because that is slightly reverse kind of a position, and the boy is absolutely love to spend. Or you can change it depending what you have in your mind. So, and calm versus angry, this is what we see in our families, so that's nothing to talk about. Then you have cheerful and a sad person. So like this Jab We Met is a wonderful example of cheerful versus sad. And then you have sociological conflict like rich versus poor. Since the beginning we have been making these films. Then you have young versus old, the values, one community versus other community. Wonderful films being made in this domain. Then you have traditional conflict like science versus supernatural. Like this is really picking up again, really. I mean, for last 10 years, this has picked up really well. Then you have materialism versus spiritualism. I mean, this is a very well explored area, but you now get to see it a lot of now after Corona. You see it happening in real life also, and then you have violent versus non-violent. So one partner is very violent, one partner is non-violent. So like these are the areas of conflict. Then there is another very interesting form, like there is a love conflict. A lot of films you must have seen. There is a moral conflict, there is a sexual conflict, there is a religious conflict, there is a political conflict, there is self-image conflict, there is interpersonal conflict. Now you say that, Salim sir, you're talking a lot about conflict, but there can be love motivation also, there can be moral motivation also, there can be sexual motivation, that is dangerous area, there can be religious motivation also, there can be political motivation also, there can be self-image motivation also, there can be interpersonal motivation also. So whatever you have in one domain is available in another domain. And so, as I say, that stories flow like wind and migrate like air. They need plot, they need conflict, they need motivation. Clearer the motivation and conflict is, better the drama is. Thank you very much.